I never thought I'd see the day where my own sister, my flesh and blood, would sit across from me in a courtroom and look me dead in the eyes with a lie perched on her lips and venom in her smile. But there she was, Emily, perfect Emily, the one who always had the best grades, the most friends, the admiration of everyone, including our father. But what no one saw, what I refused to see for far too long, was the jealousy that had been building like a storm beneath her polished surface. Our father, Richard Caldwell, was a man of legacy, a self-made entrepreneur who built his company from the dirt under his fingernails. He raised us with discipline but never lacked love. After Mom died when we were young, he became both parents, firm, stoic, but always there. And somehow we made it work. Growing up, Emily and I were inseparable. I was the quieter one, more reflective, while she lit up every room she entered. I looked up to her. I trusted her with everything. But trust is a fragile thing. Once broken, it doesn't shatter, it slices. Dad's health had been declining for about a year. At first, it was little things, forgetting where he left his keys, misplacing contracts, sleeping more than usual. But it escalated quickly. By the time he was officially diagnosed with vascular dementia, I had already taken over most of his daily affairs, with his blessing and legal consent. Emily, living 3 hours away and wrapped up in her own world, only visited when it was convenient. And yet, when Dad passed peacefully in his sleep, she showed up at the funeral in a designer black dress, crocodile tears and all, acting like she'd been his right hand. It was in the days after the funeral that the true face of my sister began to reveal itself. The will was supposed to be straightforward. Dad had drafted it 3 years ago with a lawyer present and witnesses. Everything was split evenly between us with one exception. I was named the executor and given a majority share of the family business, Caldwell Holdings, which I had been running almost single-handedly. Emily was furious. She claimed the will was outdated, that Dad would never disrespect her like that. She stormed out of the lawyer's office and went radio silent for a week. Then came the letter, a formal notification. She was contesting the will, alleging coercion, alleging fraud, alleging of all things that I had manipulated a vulnerable man for my own gain. It stung, but it was only the beginning. The day in court felt like a nightmare. It was a chilly morning in April when the hearing began. I remember because my hands wouldn't stop shaking, even inside my coat pockets. The courthouse smelled like old paper and cold coffee, and every seat in the gallery seemed filled with ghosts from my childhood, relatives, former employees, even our old neighbor, Mrs. Harper. Emily walked in like a movie star, all poise and control. She sat beside her high-powered attorney, dressed like a grieving daughter, the kind who puts on tears like mascara. And then she took the stand. I thought I was ready. I wasn't, my brother. She began, voice cracking just enough to sound sincere, has always struggled mentally. I've done my best to help him, but when our father became ill, Noah began to spiral. He became paranoid. Controlling, he isolated our father and refused to let me see him. A lie. I visited Dad every single day. I had his meals prepared, medications organized, nurses scheduled. Emily rarely called, and when she did, it was always to complain about her job, her boyfriend, her stress. She went on, wiping invisible tears from her cheek. There were times he would scream at me on the phone, accuse me of trying to take Dad's money. Once, he even accused me of poisoning him. A lie? That accusation came from Dad himself, one day when his confusion was peaking. He didn't even remember saying it a minute later. I never repeated it, I never believed it, but Emily used it like a weapon. She presented emails, some forged, some taken out of context, showing me expressing frustration with Dad's declining condition. She cited an old medical record from 5 years ago, when I saw a therapist for anxiety after my divorce? She even had a former colleague of mine, someone she likely paid off, testify that I was emotionally unstable and erratic at work. I sat in that courtroom speechless, my heart beating so hard I could barely hear. I looked at the judge, then at the jury, hoping anyone could see through it. But the damage was done. By the end of the day, the judge ruled in favor of a temporary injunction. The estate would be frozen, the business placed under third-party oversight. And I, the son who had held his father's hand as he died, was ordered to undergo a psychological evaluation before any further proceedings. Emily walked past me without a word, but she didn't need to say anything. That smug look in her eyes told me everything. She had won the first battle, and I had lost everything: my name, my sanity in the eyes of the court, my father's legacy. That night, I sat alone in my apartment. The silence was crushing. My phone, once ringing with condolences and support, now buzzed with uncertainty. Lawyers, board members, extended family, all wanting to wait and see what the courts decide. I thought about Dad. About how hard he worked to build something real, something honorable. And how, in just a few short days, it was all being twisted into a circus, one where the truth didn't matter, only the performance. But as the hours passed, something changed in me. A numbness melted into clarity. She thought she had destroyed me. Thought she had played her final card. But Emily forgot something crucial. I may have lost the courtroom that day, but I was still my father's son, and I was about to remind her exactly what that meant. After the court's decision, I was placed under a psychiatric evaluation. Not a prison, but it sure as hell felt like one. A sterile, high-security wellness facility just outside of town, the kind they send high-profile people to when the media's watching. There were no bars on the windows, but there may as well have been. The room was white, always white. The kind of white that burns your eyes under fluorescent lights. They told me it was temporary, that this was standard procedure. That phrase, standard procedure, became my curse. My punishment for trusting the wrong person. Emily had won for now. The doctor assigned to me Dr. Lena Voss was a calm woman in her late 50s. Sharp eyes, sharper mind. She didn't believe everything Emily said, but she believed enough of it to question me. At first, I hated her. I hated everything. I went through the motions, eating tasteless meals, journaling my thoughts like a child in detention, attending group therapy with people who mistook me for another privileged lunatic. But slowly I realized something. They didn't think I was crazy. They just thought I might be broken. And maybe, in a way, I was. In that silence, I started thinking back to when Emily and I were kids, riding bikes down the driveway, racing for the swing set, laughing like the world couldn't touch us. To how she changed in college, distant and cold, obsessed with climbing some invisible ladder. To the phone calls, the forgotten birthdays, the constant comparisons to her career in marketing, her lifestyle in the city. And then, finally, to the months before Dad died, when she barely visited, yet still managed to insert herself into every decision once it involved money. I had always seen the red flags. I just didn't want to believe they were planted by my own sister. But healing, real healing, doesn't come with time alone. It comes with truth. And one afternoon, in week 3 of my stay, I got a surprise visit. Someone I hadn't heard from in months. Grace, my father's former executive assistant, practically family. She'd worked beside him for 15 years, knew everything about the company, and had always treated me like a little brother. "I know what she did," Grace said softly, gripping my hand. I didn't say anything. I didn't have the strength. "She forged Dad's emails. She continued and paid off that fake witness.